Hi, this is Karl-James Langford. This is my Axumite lecture. I usually record them live, but on this occasion didn't manage to get the record button pressed in time from one of the 5 classes I presented this at. The Axumite civilization is wonderful. It's part of a series of lectures over the past 6 months where I look at a subject offered to me by one of my many students at one of my 5 classes. So the Axumite kingdom is that part of the cradle of civilized worlds that very rarely get looked at. I know this pottery in the background looks very crude, but it may be the similar type of pottery that you'd see with any civilization in Central and South America. But the Axumite kingdom itself is in the Horn of Africa itself. And I love looking at this because all I knew before was Axum itself and the Holy of Holies and the Ark of the Covenant. So let's go to where the Axumite kingdom actually is. There it is on the right of the screen in modern day Ethiopia. And there's nicely marked for you Axum itself. It was one of the 4 greatest empires on the planet. In the year AD 300. There's Axum again in the heart of Ethiopia. When we think about the Axumite world, it was in the heart of a plethora of trade, gold, silks, basically from the sea route into the Red Sea itself. It traded with Rome, it traded with India, it traded with China, Persia. It ranked amongst China, Persia, and Rome as one of the 4 great powers, as I've already mentioned, 1,700 years ago. Now, when I'm thinking about Axum itself, you might think in Africa it was part of many African ancient kingdoms, but you name one ancient kingdom in Africa, you might come across Great Zimbabwe, but you're not going to come across Axum. Now, Axum itself, the city of Axum, is 95% unexcavated. It's originally recognized in about 1906. Thorough excavations in the city of Axum in the late 1970s, but only 5% has actually been excavated. Some of the stelae there that you can actually see, these are some of 100 stelae to be found in Axum. Now, there you go. It had access to the sea, access to trade. The kingdom of Axum spread over into Yemen. It was nowhere near as big as the Roman Empire, the Chinese world, the Egyptian Empire, or any of the empires in India or Persia. But it was one of the 4 greatest powers again, 1,800 years ago. Now, if you ever think anything about the Axum kingdom, it's the city of Axum itself. And now we know hundreds of little villages and towns associated with the Axumite world. If you think about Axum, you think on the left of this slide now, the Ark of the Covenant, one of the stelae, one of the great architectural stelae, and a black priest. Now, this black priest is one of the Coptic Ethiopian Christians. Yes, Coptic Ethiopian Christians. It was never a country that was enveloped by the Muslim world. I think the Muslims and the Coptic Christians respected each other, which is a mark of something we can learn from for today. It's one of the broken stelae. Not many of them are broken, and you can see this is carved out of one pure long piece of granite, and you can see some of the architectural pieces there that they love to portray their homes, and their carvings are some very remarkable in that solid rock. Yeah, these are 100% straight. The very early illustration coming up now, this early illustration itself illustrates some of the stelae in Axum itself, the city. Underneath the city, there are the vulgaris and very rich homes of the people. There are tombs, there are everything. That even the poor people would have had wealth. Even poor people had gold. No real poor people had gold in the Roman Empire. There's a comparison. It was extraordinarily rich. The kingdom itself lasted over 500 years, from its strength about AD 200 to about AD 700. It lasted 250 years longer than the British Empire lasted. Some more of the stelae there, lots of stelae. You find burials underneath. Most of these burials of the well-to-do, we're told they're the well-to-do. That's what we believe anyway. Maybe they're not. Maybe it's all for the common people and all for the common good. But these are erect over some of the tombs, and they have got no carvings, as you would see, for example, the examples in Egypt. This is the Holy of Holies. This is where the Ark of the Covenant is believed to be stored. A priest there is chosen for their lifetime to guard the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies was never looted by the Italian troops in the 1930s. It always remained the Holy of Holies. The Ark of the Covenant is believed to be in the heart of there, where it's been for 1,600 years. Obviously, it's within the tabernacle there, the Holy of Holies, and there's one tabernacle built over the Ark of the Covenant, another one, and another one, a bit more of that coming up. So this itself is one of the wonderful spouts for the Axumite pottery, more advanced Axumite pottery, traded with the Roman world and all the rest of it. Now, you look at this, you think this has got a very much of a Western influence, but the Axumite kingdom was in the heart of it all, from east to west. It was that crossroads. It even traded silk, gold, precious metals, and even cloth. It was very rich in agriculture. So if you think about 1984, it was a very rich landscape in agriculture 1,600 years ago. But 1984, Band-Aid and all the rest of it wasn't. So massive environmental changes across Egypt. This is one of the temples, very old temple itself. One of many of these temples exist still across the Axumite world, and lots of them are over 1,000 years old, 1,600 years old. We're talking about the conversion. This dedicated to an Axumite king that was converted to Christianity. And basically, this is Greek script on there. We do have Axumite script. This is the Azana Greek tablet, and it basically says of the Axumite kingdom being converted to Christianity in the 400s, 500s, and that's basically when the Jewish priests looking after the Ark of the Covenant, which left the temple in the AD 70s after it had been burnt down by the Romans, it ended up in Ethiopia, strangely enough. That's another lecture altogether. And even those were converted to Christianity. So we're looking again at the trade routes. Obviously, that blue line going into the Red Sea from China and India. And I think if any of you are watching this thinking you've never heard of Axum and the Axumite kingdom, none of my students did either. Out of all my classes, none of them knew that the Axumite kingdom existed. The coinage itself, the really nice coinage itself shows of a mark of civilization. These coins themselves are coins of King Anubis, dating from up to about 235. There's Greek inscriptions on them, but later on they had Axumite inscriptions on them. Christianity hadn't reached them by about 230s, but who knows? King Anubis coins in gold and silver, pure gold, probably 20 karat gold, and the silver itself, equivalent in the Roman world about 230s when these coins are being produced, is that the Roman Empire's coins are so denuded of quality, there's very little gold in them. Now, this is an Axumite building. Sorry to overlap there. This is an Axumite building, typical Axumite building for the upper and lower classes of society. But as I say, the lower classes had incredible wealth themselves. But this is how they live. Lots of this is still covered up at Axum. More of the collapsed stelae. Back to the stelae. You can see some of them in the distance when the Ethiopians were overtaken by the first time by a conquering army, the Italians, who were defeated by the Ethiopians in the 1890s. In the 1930s, the Italians took one of the stelae from Axum all the way to Rome, which was now known as the Rome stelae. But after the Italians' defeat, obviously they were made to hand back the stelae. Trade itself, this indicating trade. This is a wonderful amphora. And one thing I've asked all my students is what they actually think of this slide. The slide where you find all these wonderful, wonderful spouts. Now, one thing I would say about these wonderful spouts is that these spouts themselves dedicate to water. They dedicate to water. Now, to have spouts, you can actually see they're very well worn. And these very, very well worn spouts themselves tell us that there was water in plenty. The one thing about this issue to do with water, and all of my students actually saw this, is that Ethiopia, like the Nabateans, was not only rich in agriculture, obviously they're rich in water. When you compare this with 1984 with Band Age, you simply see that the landscape of Ethiopia is completely different now than what it was 1,600 years ago. And to have these, again, I'll repeat it, to have these water spouts again, these wonderful architectural features, proves that they had a prideness associated with their water. More of the stelae themselves. And as you're looking at the stelae, and you look at that stelae and you actually look underneath and you can actually see one of the tombs that has actually been excavated at Axum. And some of the entranceways to these tombs at Axum itself, you've got the stairs, really well coursed stone. You can't really put a knife in between there. So they were really great builders. So we're building now. We've got civilization, we've got the stelae, we've got the carving, and amazingly enough, we got these wonderful signs of architecture. They didn't live in hovels like this illustration is showing. They actually lived in high status homes. As we get to the end of this lecture, some of you might be thinking, thank goodness. Again, I'll reiterate the greatness of the Axumite kingdom. The stelae there, wonderful gold coins. Now this is a transferal of the gold currency in the 600s to the gold standard. You can see the representation of the cross on there and some dedication towards the Axumite language itself. These coins are wonderful. That's nearly a coin again, but this is a coin from King Joel, as in Joel in the Bible. And you might think, what is the Knights Templar sort of cross doing represented on there? It's not. There's Axumite writing, and that coin itself is from the AD 500s, the great King Joel of the Axumite world. This is actually a bronze coin. Yes, they had bronze coins, gold and silver coins, and also, amazingly enough, I can't show you pottery coins as well. Again, lastly, the gold coins as well. Remember the gold standard, rich gold standard. Now, we've looked at high culture, but their pottery, even though it looks fairly plain and basic, you know, that Americanized type of pottery, but no, it's not. It's fired at a very high level. Lots of these obviously were fired at a high standard simply because they're surviving today. So there you go. There was great trade in glass. They produced their own glass. This is on the periphery, glass production. And again, more of these spouts themselves. You can these spouts themselves again look very Western, don't they? But they're Axumites. Obviously, the influence. This is a true cosmopolitan world. This is a rainbow-colored land, and you would have had Chinese traders. You'd have had Roman traders, whatever skin color, Ethiopian traders. Traders from all the way around the world as it was there. And I love this slide now. This is about Axumite pottery being traded out. The piece of pottery at the back, my students' favourites was the one on the left, the bottom left. Looks like a dragon, a Welsh dragon, but it's not. It's Axumite pottery from about the AD 400s. This was traded around the Roman world, Chinese world, and so on. So nice representations on these pots. Some with handles, and one in the centre particularly. The one at the back, you've got the Christian crosses, about the 500-600s, and my big favourite over in the right there, which I'll probably use in my book on the rise and fall of the Toad Empire whenever it comes out. You've got a toad on there. It's the first piece of pottery in all my lectures and years in archaeology I've actually seen a toad. And again, from the earlier pottery that was bog standard utilitarian pottery to highly advanced pottery here, really good quality, traded all the way around the world, and pride of place in the Axumite world as well. Next, a bit of Axumite script. Now, there are influences from Greek in here, influences from the Egyptian hieroglyphics. There are influences here from the Hebrewic world. There are influences from all the way around the world. So this is Axumite script. Yes, you can't have civilization without writing. Yes, there's civilization as it is. But that you don't see these carved into their stelae in the main. Their stelae are either plain or architectural. more or less domestic plain pottery. This looks a bit sort of prehistoric, but it's not. It's Axumite pottery, and there you go. Axumite pottery being produced today, as it always was in the past. The Ethiopians are massively proud of their history, and they've got every right to be. They've had a chain of history unbroken with their buildings, the stelae, the sense of attachment to the landscape. Unlike us British, who've been always mucked around with mongrel-like, the Ethiopians are really proud of their continuous flow, and their Christianity has been unbroken, undestroyed, and the land hasn't really been invaded until the Italians invaded it in the start of before the Second World War and throughout the Second World War as well, gassing the people. So the great achievements of the Axumites are as follows. Achievements. Ending up now, stelae, tall, thin monuments of solid stone were built above the tombs. Some of the largest stelae of the ancient world were built, dating back to about AD 200s, 300s, 400s. The Axumites themselves, skilled in all levels, craftsmanship and sophistication through intricate stone work, as you can see in the stelae, solid pottery, ivory, glassware, metalwork in gold, silver, bronze, and iron, obviously. The gold as well, level of civilization, and obviously their language. Coins, the first African civilization to produce gold, silver, and bronze coins. On the coins were inscribed the faces of their kings. Obviously, the languages on there. On some of them, you got wheat as well indicated. So people who would have had Axumite coins would have been directly linked with the Axumite world. And the coins themselves were great vehicles of broadcasting that the Axumite world does exist. And here we are. And I'm ashamed to think that a year ago I knew practically nothing about the Axumite world. And I love presenting the Axumite world. The Ethiopians, you've got to be really proud of this culture, and to keep it intact. Where in Britain, what traditions, what sort of high levels of civilization have we have kept going for 2,000 years? Basically nothing. Anyway, this is Karl-James Langford, proud to dedicate this video to the people of Ethiopia and the Axumite world. Well done, you guys. And everyone, thanks for watching, and please subscribe to my channel. Let's get up to 1,000 in the next 2 years. Thank you.